Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review HIM. And this is a new body horror, psychological horror sports movie from director Justin Tipping and from writers Zach Akers, Skip Bronke, and Tipping. And this film is produced by Jordan Peele, starring Tyreek Withers as Cameron Cade, a young football player who's going to be a star. And after a horrible attack, in this traumatic event, giving him very bad injury of his head, he winds up going to Isaiah White, Marlon Wayans' character's compound and becoming part of his training system, and White wants to bring him under his wing to mentor him. And things get dark, things get twisted and crazy along the way. In this film, from a directorial standpoint, it's very inconsistent. I think Tipping finds some interesting things. Like the final sequence of this film has some interesting football iconography. It has some sharp, well put together cinematography. It has brutal, crazy, wild, high energy brutality, blood and guts and stuff like that. It's darkly funny at times. This finale really captures everything this film should have been. But one of the biggest challenges, too, is like the scene right before it, this big confrontation between the two main characters is shot in a way that feels so shoddy and clunky and awkward that it just takes you out of this moment that should be so big and important. And the writing in that sequence doesn't help much either, as Wayans is left just screaming, "Goat!" and "I'm him," and just yelling at the audience the meaning of the film. And it's so awkward and weird and off-putting, and just how the visuals are shot in that and the action is shot is so convoluted and strange that it's even hard to conceive what's going on. And throughout this film, you just have this unevenness, this inconsistency in its presentation. And tonally, it's all over the place, from this darkly funny elements to this film taking itself really seriously. You have Marlon Wayans, who's playing this star football player, who has some more intense, quieter moments, but mostly is just hamming it up like crazy and chewing scenery. And he's certainly having some fun, and he's enjoyable to watch in this, but it lacks depth. And Withers is saddled with an extremely uninteresting character, and when having to act up against Wayans, who is the most interesting part of the movie, he really gets squandered. And his whole thing is like, I've had this I worked for this, I've had this inside of me, this special the whole time, and you don't buy it for a second that this player is special, this person is special. And it really sets up well the legacy and the perspective of what this young man wants to accomplish and what it means to him. But the delivery of the themes and ideas of this film are so blunt and so clunky, and it just lacks any kind of depth or nuance of what you can explore through it and make something of it. This film has a really uninteresting protagonist, and its antagonist really steals the show from him. And you even have like Julia Fox, who is someone who has a very specific wavelength, and she works that wavelength here. She has some fun, darkly funny moments too. It's just so much of this film sets up this heart and soul of this film through this opening sequence that you know how this film's going to go. Even like the twists and turns you can see a mile away. And the themes and ideas it's trying to present about legacy and competition, and all of these things just feel so hollow and half-earned and not anything in particularly very effective. This film feels very middling, despite the fact that it wants to yell about being the GOAT all the time throughout. It has a fun performance from Wayans. It has some interesting ideas. From a visual standpoint and experiential standpoint, there are some crazy elements to this film, but it just lacks the bite that it probably hopes that it has. It's not as clever as it thinks it is, and it just kind of has to accept that this is a very middle of the road not particularly strong effort. And, you know, like I said, there's some elements that really stand out here, but the rest of it certainly does not. But those are my thoughts on HIM. Let me know what you think and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.